Howdy gamers, let's talk about the runes for Poppy top lane and jungle, as I think that's her most viable roles. In the mid lane, she functions a bit differently, and you really only see it at higher MMR. It was also considered a counterpick to Kiana, in which she would run something like this, but I don't think you need to do this anymore, and I think there's just better picks for it. So back to top lane and jungle. In the top lane, Poppy's when you want to pick Poppy into melee matchups in which she has like naturally winning lanes, because Poppy has a lot of stats behind her and then also has a lot of damage in the early game. So against champions like Riven, she like really just laughs in their face, as even if those champions get onto her, they don't deal enough damage, and then Poppy is free to hit them, and she deals way more damage to them because of her high base damages, and she gets more levels in the top lane quicker, therefore increasing the base damages that she's getting from her Q and her E a lot faster. In the top lane too, you're usually going to be building tank and so on and so on. So really, I think the only viable keystones for her in the top lane are Grasp and Conquer. You might think something like Unsealed Spellbook, but with Poppy, since you make such good use out of Grasp, I think that it's actually viable compared to a champion like Ornn, where Grasp is just a luxury on Ornn. With Poppy, you have her passive, which becomes effectively a ranged auto attack, and then your Q. So with that, anytime you're trading with a melee champion, you have a little bit of extra follow-up on what you're already offering against them. So starting off with Grasp, we'll come back to Conqueror. With Grasp of the Undying as the keystone, it puts you in the Resolve tree. With Grasp of the Undying, every 4 seconds you're in combat, your next basic attack against an enemy champion will deal magic damage equal to 4% of your max health, heal you for 2% of your max health, and permanently increase your health by 5. So it functions as a trading tool. It also functions as a mixed damage tool because you deal magic damage with it. And where Poppy can proc it so often with her passive Buckler as an auto attack, like a ranged auto attack, it becomes really, really lame for the enemy champion because you're already looking to punish them whenever they look to CS with Poppy's Q. But then where you have this tool on top of it, if they choose to retaliate against you, if you're hitting minions and you have Grasp built up, then you're taking a positive trade and also healing the damage that they initially dealt to you. And if you're using the Buckler, you can potentially gain a shield on top of that, making it an even worse trade for the enemy. In an extended fight, you are likely to proc Grasp 2 or 3 times, or even 4 times with Poppy if you're playing into another tank top lane, and every single time you're permanently increasing your health. So even if you're not killing the enemy champion, you have this mini game that you could be playing in the top lane in which you're generating health, but then also taking more positive trades against the enemy laner, so long that you're hitting your abilities and whatnot. And the second row, Poppy's one of the few champions who can actually make use out of Shield Bash. With Shield Bash, whenever you gain a shield, you gain 1 to 10 armor and magic resist, which is pretty much negligible. But whenever you gain a new shield, your next basic attack against an enemy champion deals 5 to 30, plus 1% of your bonus health, plus 8% of the new shield. So the damage on this is kind of low, but it does add to Poppy's trading potential. Even if you're using Poppy's Buckler to last hit, you gain the shield immediately, and then you can use your E onto the enemy, take that one auto trade. Not only are you dealing more damage because of the shield bash, but then you can also be proccing Grasp, Q, and then you can walk away. It's a really, really strong trade at that point. So Shield Bash should be your go-to. To trade off Shield Bash for something like Demolish, it doesn't even come close in value. Like, to get value out of Demolish, you have to get the turret plates with it. And you're probably going to get the turret plates anyways if you're naturally winning lane through taking better trades, because you're better off getting the turret plates by pushing the enemy out of lane and then taking Rift Herald, or just getting one turret plate before you reset. And the third row, you have good options in Conditioning, Bone Plating, and Second Wind. All of them have their unique advantages. Conditioning is going to give you armored magic resist past 10 minutes, so that's going to help in more farming matchups or losing matchups where there's just really no interaction. So think about champions like Kale. Like, you're going to beat her down, and then she's going to become stronger than you around level 11. So you can match their scaling in a sense. With the armored magic resist offered, and then with the percentage increase, it also helps with your itemization going into late game too. And if you don't need the laning tool and bone plating or Second Wind, you might as well go with conditioning. With Second Wind, it's better into ranged matchups, but you don't want to be playing Poppy into ranged matchups But if you're a one trick or just trying to make the best of it, then second wind's going to help you the most in those matchups as there's no cooldown on it. With second wind, after you take damage from an enemy champion, you heal for 4% of your missing health plus 6 over 10 seconds. So with this, every time you take like a 40 damage auto, you're going to be healing a bit. In combination with Doran's shield, it's just going to give you more health to play with, where that's really what the enemy's looking to punish is they're trying to attack your health as you're going for last hits against them. That's like every ranged matchup. So you lessen the effect of that, and then you can exist in lane longer or maybe potentially win it because of that HP regenerated. You gain so much health from second wind, man. It's really broken. Come team fights too, it also has a lot of utility with Poppy because you gain more stats whenever you're lower in HP with Poppy, and then with second wind, you're healing for 4% of your missing health. So if you're at like 40%, you're healing for more. Nice. With bone plating, after you take damage from an enemy champion, the next 3 spells or attacks against you that you receive deal 30 to 60 based on your level less, and then this is on a 45-second cooldown. So bone plating's not as good into ranged matchups because they can hit you once, bone plating's procced, but then the bone plating won't block any damage, and then it's on cooldown. Bone plating's better into melee matchups because whenever they attack you, they're probably attacking you by engaging onto you, therefore using a dash or like just getting on top of you in general, and then once they're on top of you, they have to be dealing damage. So with bone plating, you effectively have more HP because you're blocking the initial damage they deal, or a little bit of it. That gives you time to build up grasp, or heal from grasp, or take a trade, or to back off entirely. So it gives you a lot of leniency in those matchups. So against champions like Irelia, melee champions I want to trade onto, so like Irelia, Camille, I want to dive onto you too. Bone plating is going to be giving you better value. And as a default, bone plating is going to be your easiest to use. But all 3 of these are really good, and you should be considering like which one you're running depending on your top lane matchup. For the 4th rune, you have good options in Revitalize and Overgrowth. Overgrowth gives you health for basically existing in the lane. You absorb life essence from monsters or enemy minions that die near you, permanently increasing your maximum health by 3 for every 8. When you've absorbed 120 enemy minions, you've gained an additional 3.5% maximum health. So a really solid rune, just gives you more HP for free, which is really, really strong for Poppy. It naturally scales with how you're building too, where you're building all tank items. So having more health to play with just makes you generally more useful. You can get value out of Revitalize. Revitalize heals and shields you cast or receive for 5% stronger and increased by an additional 10% on targets below 40% health. This kind of makes sense on Poppy, but not really. Other champions just make better use out of it. Think about champions like Aatrox. He's going to be healing way more than you ever can because he's healing off all of his damage. Poppy's only healing off Grasp and only getting a shield from her passive, so it's not the highest synergy rune. So I would recommend running Overgrowth instead of Revitalize. And then for the secondary runes, you're really just looking to gain like any extra utility you can. Your best options are going to be in Precision Tree with Triumph and Legend Tenacity, or in the Sorcery Tree with like scaling options like Nullifying Orb and Transcendence, or in the Inspiration Tree with extra laning tools in Biscuits and Time Warp Tonic. Biscuits and Time Warp Tonic are the most generally useful in all matchups because with Biscuits, you gain a Biscuit every 2 minutes until 6, and consuming one restores 10% of your missing health and mana, and then permanently increases your mana by 50. So it gives you more mana to play with early, even if you're not itemizing like Sheen. And then in an all-in, having that 10% regeneration on your missing health goes a lot further, pretty similar to Second Wind. With Time Warp Tonic, potions and biscuits grant you 50% of their regeneration immediately, and then also grant you 5% movement speed. Since top lane's such a long lane, that movement speed does go a long way, whether you're using it offensively or defensively. In combination with Corrupting Potion and Biscuits, you have more HP to play with immediately. So let's say you're at 60% HP, but you have Bone Plating up, and you have a Corrupting Potion charge, and you have a Biscuit. If an enemy champion dives onto you, like Camille Irelia, you can use the Biscuit and Corrupting Potion immediately, and then their damage that they're going to be dealing is blocked by Bone Plating, so then you can be building up Grasp, and you can also dump one rotation of your EQ on them, and then be surviving long enough to get another rotation off. So having more HP to play with makes laning a lot easier, but then also gives you a lot more advantages in the laning phase. In Sorcery, you gain access to better scaling options, especially into AP matchups, as with Nullifying Orb, whenever you're below 30% health, you gain a magic damage shield, and that's going to help you in matchups like Mordekaiser, Rumble, etc., where they're going to be surviving your initial burst, and then they're going to be surviving yours. So having it where you have this shield basically like circumvents not having magic resist early against them. And then with this, you also gain 10% cooldown reduction once you reach level 10. That's going to help you get more rotations of your Q off, basically. And then with that, just be generally more useful. But other champions do make better use out of Transcendence compared to Poppy, champions like Ornn. But it is still an okay option, especially in those magic damage matchups. For something like Precision Secondary, I find it really hard to outweigh the laning tools offered by Inspiration, just for the trade-off of like restoring 12% of your missing health and having a little bit more tenacity. If Poppy's going to get on a target, she's going to get on them. And if she's not, then having Merc Treads is a completely fine purchase. I don't see it in a situation in which you're really hurting because you built Merc Treads for the tenacity. And I don't see a team comp in which all the CC like really stops Poppy from staying onto targets. It's really slows that stop Poppy from staying onto targets, in which case tenacity just isn't helping as much. So I really don't value the precision tree like at all. It might help you in skirmishes. It might make or break skirmishes because you get the HP regen, so you might stay alive. And then the tenacity might help you like just tank a stun that you otherwise like shouldn't have or something. But I think Inspiration goes a lot further, and then the scaling options in Sorcery go a lot further as well for the top lane. And then for the shards, it's going to be Adaptive Force, and then depending on your lane matchup, you want to switch the resistance. So if you're playing into an AD matchup, Riven, Camille, etc., you want the armor. And then if you're playing into a magic damage matchup, Rumble, Mordekaiser, etc., you want the magic resist. If you're playing into a mixed damage matchup like Kinnan, Akali, Kayle, etc., you could go armor and magic resist. Poppy does make really good use out of this, the bonus AD from the Adaptive Force, though, as you're going to get plus 12 attack damage level 1, and Poppy makes really good use out of that in the melee matchups that she's playing because she already has so many stats behind her in the early game that having more damage goes a lot further usually than having the extra resistances. So that's what I think about top lane Poppy runes. I think you should really look to all in her laning phase, as it's really brutal for her lane opponent, and having these extra tools will help you beat weaker opponents even harder, but then also have just simply more damage and more health to play with, and then the more health is giving you more damage through surviving longer and then getting more rotations of your abilities off. So everything's just really generally useful, and then when it all comes together, it makes her like pretty significantly tankier, and with that, that's where you gain your utility. You could also run Conqueror for Poppy in the top lane. Conqueror is a weird option for me because with Conqueror, you're building up attack damage. With Poppy, you do have good AD ratios on her Q and ult. But for Poppy to build up Conqueror, it's really strange because you have like an interrupt ability in her W, and then you have what needs to be a stun ability in her E. So if you're using the E to get onto them, and then like you one auto Q auto, yeah, you can build up the Conqueror, and then you have the bonus AD, but then most of your damage is effectively on cooldown at that point. So with that, you're getting bonus AD for maybe your ult, another auto attack, and then your Q, which can still be impactful because Poppy just wins her winning matchups so hard that if you were to run something like Grasp into like a Riven, Akali, would you even need it? As if you just have more damage, it makes it more brutal for them. So with Conqueror, it is an option. I think with it, you probably want to be building Trinity Force as well. With Conqueror, your basic attacks and spells that deal damage to enemy champions grant you 2 stacks of Conqueror, giving you bonus Adaptive Force based on your level. And since you're in the top lane, you're going to be getting levels really quickly, so you're going to be getting good enough values from that really like fast enough. And then whenever it's fully stacked, you heal for 15% of the damage that you deal to champions. That healing's kind of whatever too. And then with Conqueror, you end up in the precision tree. So you have access to Triumph. Again, Legend Tenacity. But with this, I think you should be running Trinity Force as your first item. And then I think attack speed's probably going to be going further, as the champions that you would run this into once you're on them, you need to be getting more value out of the AD that you gain from Conquer. And attack speed is going to help you do that with your auto attacks. If the enemy has any CC, I don't think reducing the duration of it is going to matter, because if they're just stunning you, they're only stunning you for an auto attack if you've already spent your Q and E. And if they're stunning you in the animation of your Q and E, then they haven't done anything. So I think it's completely fine to run attack speed on Poppy if you're running Conquer and if you're building Trinity first. And then for the fourth rune, I think your okay options are obviously Coup de Grace and Last Stand. You're really choosing how you get your damage amplification. With Coup de Grace, you get 8% more damage to champions below 40% health. And then with the Last Stand, you gain 5 to 11% increased damage while you're lower on health. With this build on Poppy, I think that you're spending your health early to build up Conquer and then therefore damage the enemy more. So I think Last Stand is going to be giving you more value in that case, because you get more of a percentage damage increase the lower health you are. And when you're lower health, you're going to have more armor and magic resist from your passive, but then you're also going to have Conquer built up, hopefully. So then you have more AD to play with. You're dealing more damage, and then through dealing more damage, the percentage damage increase means more as well. So I think the synergy with it is really good, and how the lanes are going to play out normally is probably going to lead towards Last Stand being useful if you're playing Poppy in the top lane. So that's that. And then for the secondary runes, I don't think you would touch them at all. I think Biscuit Delivery and Time Warp Tonic are pretty necessary with Conquer, as you need to be staying alive and you need to be staying alive and having more effective HP to play with immediately in the laning phase. With Resolve Secondary, you're missing out on Bone Plating and Overgrowth, but it's basically like a scaling option, and then Bone Plating works better when you have Grasp anyways. And then for the rune shards, they wouldn't change either. So that's the runes for Poppy top lane. With Grasp versus Conquer, the matchups in which you would run them, I'm just not sure. I suppose Conquer would help you in matchups in which, where you will survive the enemy melee champion anyways, and then you gain extra functionality through your auto attacks, because if the enemy champion doesn't care that you have that your abilities are on cooldown, and effectively if the enemy champion doesn't have cooldowns either through their auto attacks or through their abilities, then you're at a damage deficit. But Conquer kind of circumvents that, and then building Trinity and running Alacrity also circumvents that by making Poppy's auto attack a meaningful form of damage as well. So against champions like, I suppose, Fiora, Jax, etc., maybe you'd get better value out of Conquer, as those champions want to all in you and they always have a damage uptime. So maybe Conquer goes further there. Maybe I'm off with it though. With Poppy runes, I think you have to shift things entirely, as with Poppy jungle, you're going to have lower amounts of experience, you're going to have lower amounts of gold, and the benefit that Poppy jungle has is that she has such high base damages early, and then you're going to be able to itemize pure attack damage with warrior enchantment. So I think with Poppy jungle, you should be looking to all in your burst versus adding to utility. So I think Poppy jungle's keystone options are only going to be Electrocute or Aftershock. Electrocute giving you more damage and then also giving you more snowball potential, and then Aftershock giving you more stats for free. So you really have to pick and choose where you want to get your strengths from the runes. And if you're playing Poppy in the jungle, I think you might as well run Electrocute, as it's giving you more damage and then therefore just making your ganks more potent. With Electrocute, hitting an enemy champion with 3 separate attacks or abilities deals bonus damage based on your level and then based on your bonus AD for Poppy, and it's only on a 25-second cooldown. So with that, it's effectively never on cooldown since you're playing in the jungle. You're going to gank one lane, walk to the next, gank, it's probably going to be up again, so long that you stop for one camp or even just idle in the fog of war. With Electrocute, it's giving you access to more damage immediately whenever you get onto a target. So usually in the jungle, you're flash stunning someone with the E and then auto attack queuing ult, and if they don't die there, then it's probably just an unsuccessful gank with Poppy. Poppy also has really potent invades because of her high base damages early and because of her fast clear, so Electrocute will also help you solo kill the enemy jungler in that sense. For the secondary runes, you have good options in Cheap Shot and Sudden Impact. Since you're playing in the jungle, you're going to be getting better value out of Cheap Shot. With Cheap Shot, damaging an enemy champion with impaired movement or actions deals bonus true damage based on your level and is only on a 4-second cooldown. If you're playing in the jungle, like Poppy has so many ways to proc this. Just from the jungle role, you have red buff and you have blue smite. With Poppy's kit, you have her Q, her E, and her ult to proc Cheap Shot, and Cheap Shot can be procced onto multiple enemies too. So you just add to a lot of your overall damage versus your initial burst on someone with sudden impact. With sudden impact, whenever you would use your dash or your flash, you would gain 7 lethality and 6 magic penetration. Poppy can't make use of the magic penetration unless like her W works against the enemy champion. And then with the 7 lethality, like you're just overkilling champions at this point with a gank. Like Electrocute and then AD items on top of that is going to be dealing enough damage. So I think Cheap Shot's your better option. It's going to help you in a lot more cases, as Cheap Shot can also be used defensively, where Sudden Impact can really only be used offensively. For the third rune, I think your best bet is Eyeball Collection, as you're really choosing how you get your bonus attack damage from these runes. Zombie Ward is through clearing wards, Ghost Poro is through placing wards, and Eyeball Collection is through getting kills and assist. If you're playing Poppy Jungle, you need to be playing to snowball early, either through ganking the solo lanes or through killing the enemy jungler, and with Eyeball Collection you gain bonus attack damage every time you get a kill or assist. So I think that's your best bet there. And then for the fourth rune, I think really the only option is Relentless Hunter. Relentless Hunter is going to be giving you more movement speed out of combat, and then with that it's going to help you at all stages of the game for the jungle. It's going to help you whenever you're resetting onto the map, whenever you're moving from one lane to the next, whenever you're moving from one jungle camp to the next, whenever you're approaching for a gank. The extra movement speed is going to give you more distance to actually have a successful gank. So I really think that's your only like viable option. For the secondary runes, you have good options in Sorcery or Precision. Sorcery is going to give you more movement speed options in Nimbus Cloak and Water Walking. Water Walking, pretty similar to Relentless Hunter. It's going to give you more movement speed whenever you're approaching for a gank. It's also going to give you a little bit of attack damage whenever you're in the river, so it helps mid to late game whenever you're fighting around objectives, or even whenever you're fighting for Scuttle Crab. And the extra movement speed is still really useful in those times too, as Poppy's basically always positioning to land a stun no matter what. So the extra movement speed in the river is going to help with that. And then with Nimbus Cloak, it's going to give you more movement speed whenever you cast a summoner spell, which is pretty good for Poppy, as whenever you're approaching for a gank, if you smite them, if you blue smite them, they're slowed, and then you gain more movement speed towards them. Or you gain more movement speed away from them. So you have the offensive and defensive utility of it. Let's say the enemy jungler catches you out in your jungle when you're trying to clear or something. You can blue smite them and run away. If you flash, then you're actually going to get away because you have more movement speed to gain more distance away from the enemy trying to get onto you. So there's a ton of utility in Nimbus Cloak, and it's really hard to outweigh it in the jungle role, especially since you're always going to get Water Walking with it as well. You could run Precision second with Triumph and Coup de Grace. Coup de Grace giving you 8% more damage to champions below 40% health, adding to your overall burst, but I don't think that's going to outweigh Nimbus Cloak in a lot of cases, as the extra movement speed gained from them is so impactful. But Coup de Grace is going to help you whenever you're invading, which is a lot of what Poppy's strength is as a jungler, because having more damage to targets who are low is going to help you finish the enemy jungler off whenever you actually do invade them, especially levels 1 to like 3 to 5. And then Triumph takedowns, restoring 12% of your missing health and granting you additional 20 gold. Helps you live through red buff, helps you live through red smite, helps you live through an ignite, just helps you live. And effectively getting more HP for getting a kill and assist as a jungler works better than in a solo lane, because it's a lot of what you're doing. So like this is good, and Nimbus Cloak and Water Walking is also good. I suppose if you're fighting for Scuttle Crab and looking to gank, then Nimbus Cloak and Water Walking is going to be your better bet. But if you're looking to invade or I suppose full clear more and then look for like team fights, then I think Triumph and Coup de Grace is going to be your better bet in the jungle. And then for adaptive runes, it's going to be Adaptive Force Armor. Even though you're playing in the jungle, you don't need attack speed on Poppy, because your clear is already fast enough with her Q cooldown, and the attack speed isn't going to make or break things. You want to run the armor because you're playing in the jungle, and armor is going to be negating more damage early game from the jungle camps. And yeah, that's really it. So that's my thoughts on Poppy runes. I didn't expect it to be this long, man. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I answer literally all of them. If this video helped you, leaving a like on the video helps me. If you think I got something wrong or know something about Poppy that I don't, leave it in the comments as well. Everyone can learn from it. So yeah, check out my Twitch. It's in the description, twitch.tv/sorrynelson. Bye-bye. See you later. How did I talk for like 25 minutes about Poppy? What am I doing? I love Poppy though. She's a support too.